Moving on, we're going to learn about color and saturation. In the Photos app, just click to drop down this color tab. You have different options for your color, basically. You have the overall slider like we saw above with the light, or if you click and drag this, it's going to adjust sort of an overall sort of saturation, but also contrast. And so by increasing this, you're adding contrast and color. And you can see with faces, a lot of faces, especially like my face, a lot of Caucasian faces, they have a lot of red in them, and that gets drawn out, and that doesn't look good. So you want to be careful about adding saturation for portraits or photos of people. But if you do want to just quickly go down and make it a black and white photo, you can do that by dropping the saturation that way. Let's go back. There is this auto button, and you'll see that in all of these sort of adjustments. If you click the auto, it's going to do what it thinks is intelligently going to make your photo better. I kind of shy away from that and don't use that much. You can individually adjust the saturation by just increasing or decreasing the saturation. If I drop the saturation all the way to 0 and then increase the contrast, you can kind of see what's happening with some of those colors in the background, that it's becoming more contrasty. And depending on what you like, you might want to drop the contrast a little bit so that things aren't as overexposed, while also increasing the saturation just a little bit. The cast adjusts sort of similar to white balance. If you shot in shade and you want to add a little bit of warmth, this might be another adjustment you play around with. So you can see if I increase this, it makes a little bit warmer actually. Decreasing it will make it a little bit cooler. So that's just another option for slight white balance adjustments if you want to make it a little bit warmer in that way. Let's go ahead and look at another photo though, because let's look at this one of the tomato plant right here. You know that if you shoot raw photos, that it automatically is not going to have as much color and contrast as a compressed JPEG photo. So you need to add that yourself. So this is a good example where you might want to increase the saturation quite a bit so that we can bring out some of those colors here in this photo, those reds and those greens. And here you might even want to make it a little bit more contrasty with the colors itself too. One other color adjustment I want you to be aware of is this selective color adjustment here. This allows you to adjust the hue, saturation, luminance of specific colors. So if I want to adjust just the reds, I would click this red button here, and then I can adjust the hue of the reds. And you can see that it's making the reds either more magenta or more green. So if I want all my tomatoes to look green, then I can drag it to the right. The range will increase how much of that color is selected. So by increasing the range, it's going to select more of the reds and the colors around red on the color spectrum. And by decreasing it, it's going to be more specific to this exact red. Let me undo this. If I want to pick a very specific color in my frame to adjust, I can choose this eyedropper here and then find the color. So I want to pick, let's just pick this red right there. And you can see that it kind of chooses the red, but it's the specific red there. And now I can adjust just that red, which will be a better way, a more intelligent way to increase the saturation of these tomatoes. Now, you don't want to go too far with it. It's very easy to quickly make this look unnatural unless that's the style you want to go for. So usually with saturation adjustments, you want to make it pretty subtle. Luminance is the brightness of colors. So you can actually adjust kind of the exposure of specific colors by using this luminance slider. So if we want to make the tomatoes a little bit darker, we can do, or make them brighter, we can do that with this luminance slider. Okay? So that's one way to adjust specific colors. Say you want to make a specific color desaturated in black and white, we can use the color selector, pick say this green, and now let's drop the saturation of the green itself. Maybe even the luminance we can bring down. We can increase the range if we want to increase more. So the thing with this selective color adjustment, though, is you only have one color in the Photos app that you can adjust at a time. You can't select multiple. So you might go back to saturation here and increase the saturation if you want to bring back some of that saturation of that red, or decrease the range so it's not selecting as much, or maybe you pick a different green because I think the tomatoes were a little bit yellow, something like that, depending on what you want. This is just kind of a fun feature if you want to try to get rid of the color, all colors except for one. There's better ways to do this in other applications that are a little bit more powerful, but you can quickly come up with some sort of creative edits like this with these tools, the hue, saturation, and luminance tools. I'm going to undo that though, but that's basic color and saturation adjustments using the Photos app.